Especially when you're starting out, I see some photographers are trying to break the rules right away because they think, oh, I'm going to be creative. And that's awesome. But the sooner you figure out the basics and the classic shots that you kind of, you have to get them, that I know I have to get at every wedding. There are certain portraits, certain wide images that are, they're just part of the wedding album that I know every client wants to see. So you just have to practice. Like, it's just all about practice. And after, you can actually get creative because you just get the musts, like the classic pictures, and then you have the time to do the creative stuff.
Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast, brought to you by CloudSpot. Each week on the show, we interview the world's most interesting photographers to find out what it really takes to capture beautiful images and compelling stories so that you can start to do the same. Welcome back, my photo friends. Today, we got a good one. It is with destination wedding photographer Julia Eskin. Now, Julia is not a destination wedding photographer in the sense that she travels to weddings, but she lives in a destination location and shoots weddings for couples who travel to where she is. Now, that may seem like a small distinction, but with COVID effectively canceling her entire wedding business, she had to get creative in the ways that she could still, do what it is that she loves and make a living. Now, one thing that will stand out to you is when you look at Julia's work, her use of light and composition to not only document a wedding, but also show off its beautiful location, that her couples have chose to be the setting as one of the most important days of their lives. So Julia in this episode is going to share some great tips on how to better see compositions and how to even practice flash at home so that you can prepare for a wedding day. Lots of great stuff. With that, let's go ahead and get on into this one with Julia Eskin. Julia, my first question for you is, when did you know that photography was going to play an important role in your life?
I actually have a different story than a lot of photographers. I chose it as a career intentionally. So it just clicked. My best friend was getting ready for a destination wedding, and we're looking for so many pictures. And I was at that point in my life where I was trying to decide what I want to do after graduating with Bachelor of Science, which didn't really give me much. And I was looking at the pictures and I'm like, wow, maybe I can do that. Sounds like a fun career, like traveling, doing destination weddings and taking pictures and going to weddings. So I kind of picked it intentionally, and I was not into photography at all. Like, maybe I had a point and shoot camera and that's it. And I just decided that's what I'm going to do.
It is a fun career, especially I say that it's one of the only jobs where you can show up every day for work and there's cake, which is so wonderful, not just on Fridays. I want to know more about, you said that you went to school, you got yourself a bachelor's of science. Like, you obviously had chose some sort of path or had an idea of maybe something that you wanted to do. What was that decision like to change career paths and decide, you know what, I'm going to abandon everything that I've learned so far and move forward with photography? Was that a difficult decision to make?
No, it was actually a pretty easy decision to make. I was also working in a nonprofit while I was a student. I was working there for 5 years, and it was very fulfilling as, it's a charity work. But I was working in the office all the time. And at some point I realized, like, I'm not an office person. Like, this is not for me, the 9 to 5 every day. And I knew that I had to be out there. So when I realized there is like wedding photography and destination weddings, it just clicked. Like, it was an easy decision. I wanted to travel, but I needed to make money, obviously. So yeah, it just clicked.
That's too funny. No pun intended there. So obviously you had that point and shoot camera. You'd been taking photos, like many of us do, I'm sure, just snapshots of things throughout your life. When you had decided, you know what, I'm going to do this professionally, was there a steep learning curve, or did you pick up photography pretty easily?
Yes, I actually spent all my free time just learning anything I could find. That was just over 12 years ago. So there was not that much online back
Of
then.
course.
So lots of books, anything I could find online. It was learning like every minute, every spare minute I had, I was I was learning like, and I got the simplest DSLR back then, and taking lots of pictures and learning, trying and learning, reading, trying to understand things. I was set. Like I was like, I'm gonna do this. So it was a steep learning curve, but it worked out. It was definitely worth it.
What do you think was the hardest thing for you to understand about photography? I think just from a technical standpoint.
The light.
Light.
I couldn't understand the light. Like, just, I remember there's this book, it's from way back. I think it's called Understanding Light. I don't remember the author, but and I remember reading the book, and he explains it so well, different type of light, like backlight, front light, just like side light, and I couldn't get it. Like, I was taking pictures, they came out well, I could kind of, but I couldn't see the light.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment it clicked and I could see the light, my life changed. Like, my whole world just like, it opened up to me. Like, oh, this is what it's all about. Like, that's when just all the camera settings, everything just clicked together. Like, it was like a puzzle, and it's all
Right.
together now.
That's funny. I feel the same way about light. It's one of those things to where I think it's funny how like everybody today has a camera with them wherever they go, even if it's just their cell phone, and we
Yes.
can capture great photos. But it's like the people who are able to consistently capture great photos, like if you look at those images, it's not the camera gear because it can still be a cell phone, but it's either a great moment or the use of light, the way that that was captured. So again, I love that.
For
When
sure.
it comes to the learning aspect, you knew that you wanted to go into wedding photography. How did you practice photography? Like, did you just what were those first days like? Did you just buy a camera and say, "Hey, I'll shoot anybody's wedding for free," or did you start practicing before you started shooting weddings? What was that like?
Definitely practicing with anyone I can get in front of my camera. So lots of friends, friends of friends, couples. Um, so anyone I could get, but I wanted people in front of the camera because I knew for wedding photography I would have to deal with people.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's what I see. Like, a lot of people start with. They're trying to get into portrait or wedding photography, but they mostly stick with landscape
Oh
or,
yes.
I don't know, macro photography. But you do need people in front of the camera. So, because you learn how to pose, you learn how to work with people, actually give directions, capturing moments that only happen between people. Like, if it's especially for weddings, because it's all about moments too. So, yeah.
When you were trying to get those people in front of your camera, were you trying to learn both photography and posing at the same time? Because that sounds exhausting.
Oh, pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
and if I could get a couple in front of my camera, it was very nerve wracking. Like, what do I do to them? And they also had certain expectations. I was obviously doing it for free at first, but it's still like they had their expectations of how the pictures are going to come out. So I tried both. Like, I was trying to learn anything I could at that moment.
When you look back at some of those earliest photos, which I know is just such a fun and non-torturous exercise to do. But when you do look back at some of those earliest photos, is there anything that stands out as like an amateur mistake that you made, or something that you wish that you could go back and just change in your photography journey?
Of course, it's just light, as I mentioned
Like,
before. I didn't understand it completely, so I was just doing the very simple mistakes. And I was trying to fix the problem with my camera settings or in post-production, but it was actually something that just understanding the light would bring it together. Like that was the most common mistake. It's just not understanding light and trying to fix it with post-production, which
Of
is,
course.
yeah,
Time consuming, if anything.
yeah, of course.
Not only is it difficult to learn because it's so subjective, but also very, very time consuming.
Yeah.
I know that you started your photography journey in Canada. Is that right?
Yes, I did. Yes.
And then you decided to move down to Punta Cana, or was that it, or did you? I'm sorry, this is getting too long of a question. Was that the progression for you?
No, I actually wanted to be a destination wedding photographer. I wanted to I was young and I wanted to travel the world. And so that seemed like a path to go. I'm like, wow, destination weddings, I can go places, I can make money, and they'll even pay for my travel. So I was traveling from Canada to Cuba, to Dominican Republic, to Mexico. Then we started traveling more, and we went to Thailand, Bali. But we settled in Dominican Republic just because I had so many bookings here, and we had kids, so we kind of that traveling and kids. So we decided to settle down here.
Yeah, we have two kids, a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, and
exactly the same
difficult.
age. Sorry, yeah,
Oh,
9
really?
and 5.
Same age.
Yeah,
It
two
is.
boys.
It is definitely difficult to get them on planes and worry about making sure that they're safe, that they got everything that they need.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that. But now you live in this beautiful destination location. So now I guess instead of you going to where couples are getting married, they're kind of coming to you. So when couples hire you to shoot weddings, are they looking for something different in their images that maybe they couldn't have got if they got married back home? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I think it's not just the images. I think it's the whole experience of a destination wedding. They usually mostly the closest family members and the closest friends actually make it to destination weddings just because it involves travels, hotels. It's, people who come here, they obviously need to plan for that. And they're not, a lot of them are looking for the experience and the imagery. Like I've met so many brides who just had that image in their heads that they are on the beach and getting married. And that's what they love. Like they love the sun, the background, and having all their closest family and friends partying with them, not just for the wedding many times, but like 5 days for a week when they come here.
So I know that like when I photograph a wedding here in Indianapolis, it's like the couples, they'll pick out a venue that they love, that they think is beautiful, and the photos that we get there they're nice, but I think what the couples love most about the photos is the connection between them two in the image, regardless of where it is. With a destination location, it seems a little bit different. It's like you have to think of that element of a beach as like a third party. Does that make sense? Is that right, or am I totally off there?
Oh, it does. Yeah. So of course, for them, it's their dream come true, because for destination weddings, it's a lot of, any wedding is a lot of planning, but destination weddings, not all of them have a chance to actually fly here before they get married here. So it is a big part of the wedding. But the connection also matters. And I think the whole experience is just slightly different. So the moments and how they perceive the day can be a little bit different. So the pictures are probably a little different too.
Yeah.
And of course, the location is part of that. Like they probably act different here than they would back home.
Of course. Of course, I can't tell you how many
Yeah.
weddings it's like you go to, and maybe they forgot something and they have to go back home and get it or whatever. And it just seems like whenever that
Yes.
happens, I don't want to say that they're taken out of it, but it almost like there's a bit of magic that's lost on the wedding day where you're in a hotel, you're in like a new location, like you're doing all these things, but still being close enough to home. I don't know. There's something within that where hearing if you do go get married somewhere else, I could imagine that there's a lot less, maybe more stress in some areas, but also a lot less stress because you can't worry about oops, I forgot this at home or whatever. That wasn't a question. I apologize. That just kind of went off on a little tangent there. But
It's
uh,
perfect.
I want to go more into your photography here because looking at your images, they are gorgeous. And if I was getting married in Punta
Thank
Cana, like that's exactly what I would want because if I'm going to post some images, of course, in the show notes,
Thank
and
you.
of course they're gorgeous. And as I said earlier, there is this relationship between the couple that I can see in the photos and their joy together, and they're obviously enjoying that moment, but also we're at the beach. We get these beautiful views, and it's not just hey, here's a couple in a beautiful location. It's hey, here's a beautiful location and a beautiful couple. And I don't know if there's looking at your photos. I know that there's a tight relationship not only between the couple but the location itself. So from a photographic standpoint, like what elements are you trying to pull in or incorporate to deliver that for your clients?
So, yeah, the location is a big part of it, especially because they picked it being away from here, like not actually, a lot of them, as I mentioned before, don't actually come here before the wedding. So, incorporating that into the picture and trying to show it um, as part of their memories. Like, I want to make sure it's not just them, just to show so that when they look back at the pictures many years later, they actually remember the feeling being there, being in that place, like the breeze on the beach, and the gorgeous sunset, and the palm trees in the background. So all of those things, obviously, like we're trying to capture that and bring the couple together, like bringing it all together so it forms this memory when they look back at the pictures.
Hey, Raymond here, and we will get back to today's show in just a moment. I know that you've seen self-proclaimed quote-unquote photography influencers selling Lightroom presets for, $20, $50, or even $100. But here's the thing. Presets are a learning tool and not a one-click solution to fix a bad photo. Well, I want to help you by giving you my 52 free Lightroom presets over at freephotographypresets.com. Use presets to learn editing on your own so that you can create your own signature editing style, not somebody else's. Again, grab your 52 free Lightroom presets today at freephotographypresets.com. Now, back to today's interview. Yeah, and again, I think that it's like just looking at them, it's just very beautiful. It's very beautiful, and I think that
Thank you.
it's the type of images where I think a lot of people want to get into destination wedding photography, or like a lot of new photographers want to travel with their camera to be able to get interesting scenic views, and it's like you guys have the luxury of living in a place like this and being able to incorporate both those things together. But from a photography standpoint, when I look at your work, just technically breaking it down, I think that you're very good at several things, but two things stand out: composition and your use of light. So obviously you overcame that barrier earlier with light, but I want to know more about the composition here. Where did this come from? Where did your education in composition come from? We'll just start there.
It's just trying and practicing. And it's also about being brave, trying to break. Once you figure out the rules, like the rule of thirds and the basics of the photography, it's when I realized I can try and break the rules a little bit, or it's just about trying. So the way I look at it, like I always take the safe pictures first, where I know it's a, it's a simple, nice, classic composition.
Mm-hmm.
And after I'm done that, I know I can play around. Like I can get high, get low, play around with reflections, just try different things. It's a lot about moving around, getting closer, or stepping back. That's an important, to me, this is really important. Just trying to find a different perspective. And that's where different compositions, interesting compositions fall into place. Once you try, and some pictures don't work out, like you get low and like, oh, this doesn't look good.
Yes.
I had something in mind, but it doesn't come out like that in the picture. But then you get higher up, you're like, oh, there's stairs right here, there is a little balcony, maybe I can try something from there. And you get higher up and boom, like wow, it covers the view. Also, because we are like, there are tall palm trees and the beach, I use a lot. I love the wide lenses. To me, like 24 millimeters, that's
That's a sweet spot, huh?
Yeah, that's a sweet spot for, I kind of look at it as a landscape and incorporating the couple into the landscape picture. So I look at the place and I'm like, wow, that would be good landscape picture. And then, so I just need to figure out where to place, where the good composition is to place the couple. So it all comes together. So there is a landscape, and then I just try to envision where they put the couple. And sometimes, like with flash, actually, we tried. So I shoot with my husband. He's been my second photographer for many years. And we actually practiced that. I'll ask him to stand, where I would place the couple if we have a moment, and prepare for that shot. So I actually play with the composition that way too.
Yeah, before the couple steps into it. That's very,
Yeah.
very important, because I feel like on a wedding day, like you don't want to steal away a couple's time. So very smart.
No,
very smart tip.
of course. Yeah, no, of course. That's either if there is a short break or before, obviously, before the event. And it's like always stepping back or getting closer, getting low, or getting high. Like this, either one of those usually can, you can figure out a different composition, different view, and the image just comes out a little different, like it shows more of what's actually happening.
And I think at the end of the day, that's all that we're trying to do, right? We're trying to prove as photographers that we were hired for a reason, and that we can get photos that your Aunt Sally isn't going to get or whatever with her iPhone. And that's one of the biggest things. Yeah. But still, when I talk to like new photographers, it's okay, I understand what the rule of thirds is. I understand what framing is. I understand what leading lines are, but to keep all those things in your head and to constantly look for them, at least in the beginning, can be very difficult. So for you, how long would you say that it took you before you went out thinking, okay, framing, leading lines, rule of thirds in your head, and you just shoot? Does that make sense?
Yes. So that's these are the rules I obviously still have in my head every time I shoot. And to me, that's like, they're almost automatic now. When I pick up the camera and I start shooting, it did take some time. So it's a lot of practice. But as I mentioned before, just especially when you're starting out, I see some photographers are trying to break the rules right away because they think, oh, I'm going to be creative. And that's awesome. But the sooner you figure out the basics and the classic shots that you you have to get them, to me, they're must. that I know I have to get at every wedding. There are certain portraits, certain wide images that are, they're just part of the wedding album that I know every client wants to see. So you just have to practice. Like, it's just all about practice and noticing after every shoot. It's like, oh, all my pictures are really tight. Like, they're really close. Maybe, next time I do the close-up shots, and then I'll do some wider images. So the more you practice, it just becomes automatic. And after, you can actually get creative, because you just get the musts, like the classic pictures, out, and then you have the time to do the creative stuff.
Do you think that you would hold on? What is this question here? Do you think that you have a compositional style, like, that you could explain? I've never thought of this before, so I'm wondering if this is even like a good question or not. But do you have anything to say about that?
It's, to me, in terms of composition, it's as I mentioned before, I do love the wider photos, just to show off the location and the landscape. I think that's my go-to style for me personally.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, where I'm just trying to imagine, how can I capture this location, this landscape, and the couple in it.
So you mentioned palm trees earlier, right? Now, when I think of a beach, oftentimes it's a blue ocean, it's a blue sky, right? You throw in some palm trees, like that does say beach. But are there any other elements that you try to incorporate in that tell a similar story?
Sunset. So I'm actually big into nighttime portraits. So I use flash, not a lot, but I'm trying to show, I love that moment. So there is a moment, it gets dark early here in Punta Cana. So there is this moment between when it's completely dark and it's just getting dark, probably like, well, dusk, I guess. It's a short moment. Like, it gets dark really quickly here. In Canada, for example, this period of time when the sun sets down, it's a lot longer.
Yes.
From my experience. So just knowing that time when the sun goes down, and it's not always a perfect pink sunset, but just that moment when the sky is kind of blue before it gets completely dark, and incorporating the lights of the venue or any other lights that we can find nearby, and compensating for that with a flash. These are I know, the nighttime portraits that clients just love. And most of the time it's just using one flash with a modifier. So it's more for beginners. The modifier just makes the light more direct. It makes it into a spotlight. And that perfect moment when the sky is blue, the lights are nice in the background, and incorporating that together. And for me, I find the couples also find this moment important to them. That's usually when everyone sits down for dinner, and I pull them out for like 5 minutes just for those nighttime portraits. And they love it. They love the result, but they also love the moment of just two of them. Everyone is inside or wherever, aside. It's dinner time, and just those 5 moments, just two of them, with this dusk, feel like it's getting dark, and it's like their wedding day. It all comes together. This is my other go-to.
Yeah, it definitely gives them space to breathe. I've realized I do it similar. It's like if everybody is still eating, like I'm gonna steal them away so that they don't have to talk to people while eating. And yeah, it just
Yeah.
makes for a perfect time. Continuing to talk here about Flash, I think that myself, when I started actually in cinematography. So I wanted to like shoot movies, and then transitioned into
Mhm.
photography. And learning the lighting aspect of photography was very different than it is for movie making. So for me, I was using light as just a simple way to increase the exposure of my image, right? So most of the time it was just on
Mhm.
camera, but then learning to be able to take it off camera is where you can really do artistic things, like you're saying here. So
Yeah.
you gave us the one example, kind of nighttime, it's looking good. Using one flash kind of makes them stand out. Can you talk to me more about how you artistically use flash, maybe in other senses of the day, maybe reception or just other bridal portraits?
Oh, of course. So I also use flash with getting ready. So when the bride is getting ready in the room, it depends on the room, but if I see that there is something where I can use the flash, I'll definitely use it. And it's the same way. It's just a spotlight and usually incorporating some kind of lights in the room. So if it's a chandelier and there is a mirror, like I'll just use a flash to put some light on the bride, for example, and then incorporate the chandelier in that picture because it's part of the room where they're getting ready, for example. So that's for getting ready. Also for reception, yes, we love the dance, like we love the party. It's my favorite part,
Yeah.
to be honest. I know a lot of people find it exhausting and they're like, oh, I worked with videographers before that like, they're not too excited about that, but I personally love it. Like there's so many moments that happen on the dance floor that I know for sure will never happen again.
Mhm.
So I think the memories from from that party, from that dance floor, are to me they're priceless. And I think for the people in the pictures, they're priceless as well. Like this is happening. They're in Dominican Republic or wherever they are, and they have all their friends around, and they're having fun. Like they're having the time of their life. So we do use a flash on the dance floor a lot. Like we actually get in the action. We use a flash with a small softbox and
On camera, correct?
um, no, actually,
Off camera.
so my husband, he is holding the light and
Ah,
he's watching me. So I'm with the camera. Um, he's watching me where I see the action, and he's not even looking at what's happening. He's just looking at me where I'm pointing the camera, and he knows he's gonna point the light there. So
ah.
that works out really well. We came up with, I think I saw someone else doing this, and it just worked out perfectly because we shoot together. So he actually puts his camera down and he's just holding the light on a monopod with the small softbox.
Mhm.
And he's just watching, and I move around and I'm like, oh, this person is you kind of learn to anticipate who is gonna do a fun move, like who's
Oh,
gonna
yes.
jump, who's gonna, I don't know,
Do
pour
something crazy.
champagne,
Yeah,
like do
champagne,
something
yeah.
crazy. And so he's just watching me as I move around with the camera, and he's just lighting up where the action is happening.
Hmm.
And it
So,
works out really well. It gives this feeling, it puts like a spotlight
mhm.
on the action, and we compensate obviously for the background.
Is the flash that he's holding, is it from above coming down, or is it from behind to backlight them? What direction is that coming from?
So he's actually on the side. We try to light from the side because we find that's the best angle.
Hmm.
Like that works. So he's on the side and of my camera, usually to either side, and that works out the best in terms of lighting.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, Now, I want to go back to the getting ready real quick because I feel like I can picture that
Mhm.
photo in my head, but I just want to make sure. So, if we have a bride, she's getting ready, maybe getting hair done or, putting in earrings perhaps, and there's a beautiful chandelier in the room. Oftentimes, these rooms have big windows, there's lots of light at the beach, it's coming in. Can you explain why are we using flash? What is the flash actually doing? How is it helping you achieve a better photo?
So it really depends on the room. Like sometimes, like if the chandelier or something is in the back of the room, it's not that much light coming from the windows. Like if
Mhm.
it's further away from the windows. So if you try to just, if you try to do a natural light picture, the chandelier might be like you might not see it as well. Like it doesn't give that feeling of that kind of almost darker corner of the room where the bride is standing. Like you're compensating for that, and it's just a little flat. So I would bring the exposure down a little bit. So kind of like more to make sure that the chandelier is visible,
Mhm.
and then add a flash on the bride so that we can see the bride like and see the chandelier at the same
Gotcha.
time.
So we
So
underexpose, and then the flash is used to compensate for underexposing the entire room to just highlight the bride.
exactly. Thank
Okay.
you. You explained it perfectly.
Well, I know sometimes
Yeah.
I've seen obviously a lot of photos that you posted on Instagram, and I just wanted
Yeah.
to. I'm sure that we'll possibly have an example that maybe we can put in the show notes.
Oh, of
Um,
course. Yeah. I'll send you
okay.
some pictures.
Very cool. I just wanted to make sure because I know a lot of people, maybe listening in the car or the gym, trying to figure that out.
Mhm.
Because I think that was a hard one for me is figuring out why would I go through the trouble of setting up a light when there's plenty of light in this location? Like why would I do that? And I think that once you can figure that out, oh wait, if I overpower the natural light in here, I can essentially
Mhm.
create whatever I want to, and that's a big change for photographers. I know that you were, talking earlier about learning light, and that was difficult to kind of understand when you were learning light, was it just you trying to see the light that was around you? Or again, were you trying to learn photography, learn posing, and off camera flash photography all at the same time?
It was all at once.
Jeez,
Mostly was natural. I know, all at
so
once
much.
at first. I know, and that's maybe why I couldn't figure it out for a while. So that was probably a mistake I was doing. I was trying to figure it all out at once. And
Wow.
looking back, I should have figured out the light first, then the posing, then the timelines and like the must-have shots. But yes, I was doing it all at the same time. But the flash was intimidating at first. I think it's intimidating for everyone. Like it's one of those things that you're like, oh, I'll only use it if I have to. Um, but once I figure out the lights, like it's also seeing it around you. Now, obviously, I just know, like I can just see
Yes.
it in front of me. You know what I'm talking about. But first, it was like trying to figure out the natural light, and then the flash. Honestly, you can practice at home. Like I just started practicing at home. There's no pressure. If you in your room, just turn on the lights. Like if you have a small light like that you can position here or position here, trying to imitate a room where the bride is getting ready, for example. Or if you have a chandelier at home and trying to do a picture at the table, for example, like at the dinner table, and just playing around. And then it gives you, like, when you have no pressure and you just try those things at home, it's a lot easier. Like you can actually, like, even the reflections, like if you have a mirror at home, just play around with it. Try taking different pictures with that mirror, like, because you do have mirrors uh, at different venues, and that can give something, that can give a different perception
Mhm.
of what's going on. So you can just practice at home. That's what I did, and it helped a lot. Like some of those things that I would see a picture online, I'm like, how did they do that? And just trying to reproduce that or figure out like the lights. And then it's just practice, practice, practice. And then, oh, okay, you figure it out at home, then you can try it at your next wedding.
Yes. It's that practice, though, that I think a lot of people, I think there's a difference between just practice and the right practice. And I think that that's where a lot of people get caught up, because with photography, sure, you can walk around your house and, practice your aperture, ISO, shutter speed, like see all these things around your house.
Yeah.
But then not knowing, I guess, maybe the purpose of flash and how to incorporate it, that can be a difficult thing. And obviously you figured that out. You're like, I'm just going to get in this. I'm going to dive deep into wedding photography and see where flash is used and then practice that at home. But for those who are intimidated right now with flash, but you've convinced them, okay, maybe I'll bring a flash to my next wedding. Let's say that we want to give them a challenge of just shooting one photo with flash. What is like the easy first setup to do, bread and butter, simple to capture, and couples love it? What would that photo look like? What can we task our listeners to capture at their next wedding?
So first, get your flash off the camera. So try putting it somewhere else. Try putting it on the side, on a little mount, a little light stand, but to the side. Try to get it off the camera so you can have a little bit more room and you can light up the bride or the couple from a side. Next thing, it's so that's the easiest thing to do. Just try and play around with it, because once you have the flexibility, getting the flash off the camera, that gives you a whole new world. Like you can step back, you can get closer, you can move the flash back and forth. The transmitters, I've been using Yongnuo cheap transmitters for years.
Yeah.
And the flashes too, and they were great. Like they're cheap. I'm on the beach, like our flashes fall all the time. Unfortunately, if it's windy, like they just smash, but they're super cheap. They work great. So I have like a whole backpack of flashes. Right. And I know, but they were great. I have a transmitter and receiver. Like I have a receiver in every camera. And it's basically getting the flash off the camera. That's the best way to start, and the whole new world opens up. And then if you have a chance to use a modifier, it's just you put something, like there are different brands. I use Magmod, I think, but there are some cheaper brands that you can put on the flash just to direct that light. It's going to change your world. Like it's a whole, you'll see how you can add the flash in a completely different way. Like just getting it off the camera and playing around with it, like getting close, further away. You can change the direction of the light. That makes a huge difference to me. Once I figured out that I can actually have it somewhere else, it changed my world. Like this is like, wow, I can do this. And also reverse engineering pictures. To me, I would see a beautiful picture with flash. I could figure out that there was a flash used for that picture. It's like, how can I go back and try and recreate this picture? Like where would I need the flash? Like where would I need to stand? Like what? And a lot of times, a lot of pictures you see, they're just one flash, as I mentioned before. Like sometimes it's two, but a lot of pictures it's just one flash, but it's a certain angle and the modifier, and that's it. And you just think about
things.
Yeah, exactly. And you just think of it as a flashlight. To me, it's just flash you can see. That's I guess, the biggest challenge with the flash, because with a flashlight, you can just, if it's a flashlight, you can just put a flashlight on the object or, people, your couple. But with the flash, you can't see it. So it's a little tricky. Like, well, what's going to happen? It's more of a surprise to me. It was like, okay, it's so quick. Like, I can only see it in the picture. I can't actually see the light. But as you learn, like, and you understand that this light is like, it's a beam of light, it just all comes together.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. I know that, where we're at in the world right now, 2020 had to have been a pretty difficult year to be a wedding photographer in a destination location. How did your business survive? What'd you do?
So we actually, everything was canceled. So all of our weddings were just, every morning I would wake up. I had a lot of weddings booked, and I would wake up and there's another cancellation or another postponement to whenever, like maybe in the fall. People didn't know what's going to happen, when they're going to be able to travel. Everything was closing down, and I was waking up and just seeing all those cancellations. But because we're destination wedding photographers, we started a small business and actually building up for that business even before COVID, mostly for destination weddings, to live stream weddings. And that helped, and it grew a lot. So for destination weddings, unfortunately, it was really difficult. Like the country was closed for about 5 months. I think we didn't have any flights. But the live streaming grew so much, and it all because we have an app for the phone. We developed it for ourselves at first. Like, this was an idea that we can use for our destination wedding clients, so that they can, their family and friends who could not be there, they could see the wedding, and we were offering it to our clients. But with COVID, it grew so much, and our app is being used all around the world, like Australia, New Zealand, Asia, all around the US, Canada, South America. And so that helped a lot. Like, I'm mostly involved with that now, but I still do shoot weddings, and mostly because I love it.
So,
and
I'm sorry, go on. I was going to ask, like, with live streaming, I mean, that's something that I've never done at a wedding, because I feel like, at least for me as a photographer, it's like that's a lot of stuff going on. So is this marketed to photographers to add on, or videographers to enhance their packages?
Yes, exactly. So we developed a very simple app to live stream directly from the phone. And we do have a lot of photographers and videographers who just added to their packages, and clients love it, especially, with COVID, it was an important thing to do. But even now, like, a lot of people have family and friends all over the world. So a lot of photographers and videographers figured out that it's great to have and to be able to stand out. Like, when people look at different packages and like, oh, live streaming is included. I personally love our app for the iPhone. Like, it's amazing. Like, we developed, because we're photographers ourselves, so we developed it. We have like an audio meter and a little exposure adjustment, and our pages are made for photographers and videographers, so they're white labeled with their logo, and the emails are branded. So we kept all of that in mind, but it's super simple to do. I know it seems complicated, but with an app, we really try to make it simple. I am all about the simplicity, like one light for flash, for example. So with live streaming, we try to do the same thing. And it works really well for many people. Like we actually had some photographers who were just offering live streaming when their weddings were canceled. A lot of them, they got into live streaming and just started offering live streaming with our app in
Wow.
their
And they were
area.
able,
And
oh my goodness. And they were able to save their
yeah,
businesses. That's very
oh
cool.
yeah, of course. Like, and they were actually streaming other people's wedding just because they advertised for that and started offering live streaming. So they had some extra income.
Yeah, yeah. I hope I hope that the trend of smaller weddings continues because sometimes massive weddings can get uh, over the top. I'm sorry, that's me right
No,
there. Let's see.
no.
I thought that I turned this off. I apologize for that. Um, yeah, I again, it's one of those things where it's like I love shooting smaller weddings because I feel like the couple has a better day. It's less stressful. They're not always worried about all of their guests, and being able to just live stream their wedding to all the people who maybe they didn't want to invite. Uh, Sounds wonderful. So best of both worlds there. That's very cool. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And for photographer, like for smaller weddings, a lot of people will hire a photographer for an hour or two, but they might not hire a videographer. So with live streaming, they kind of get both. Like they get the live
Yeah.
stream and the video is saved in high definition on the phone, and the couple gets it to keep. So
Oh wow.
it works out really well. So we have. Uh, for especially for small weddings where there is no videographer. A lot of our elopement photographers love that because they add it, and then the couple feels like they're getting so much more. Like they're
Sure.
getting a photographer and they're getting the live stream and the video that they might not have had.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
like it.
since they're
Lots of extras there. I love how the industry is. It's like at its base, weddings. I feel like they haven't changed much in a long time, but technologically, there's a lot of new and fun and interesting things coming. So that's very cool. Thank you. Well, Julia, I know that we
sure.
are at the end of our time here. Before I let you go, I know there's going to be people who are interested more about you and your photography and obviously live streaming as well. So can you share with us where we can find you online?
Sure. So for my photos and destination wedding photos, you can look me up at juliaeskin.com. For live streaming, it's our company is eventlive.pro. And you can, if you're interested in adding live streaming or trying it out, you can also check out our YouTube at youtube.com/eventlivepro. We have lots of resources, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions.
My biggest takeaway from this episode, and I know that you probably know this as well now, it really doesn't matter how great of a photographer you are. It doesn't matter how in demand you are. You can always be kicked right in the butt and dropped to your knees. You know, think of how you could provide a service that could help your clients regardless of the state of, world health. I've heard of photographers in winter months offering services to maybe their family photo clients, where they take all of that family's snapshots and photos that they took on their iPhones throughout the year, and then the photographer then creates a family yearbook for them out of their own photos. Julia obviously leaned into live streaming for her couple's family members who maybe couldn't travel, and it paid off. Now, before we take off, I want to give a huge shout out to our photo friend, Christy, for leaving the podcast a 5-star rating and review for the podcast. She says, "This podcast gets me excited, motivated, and confident to go out and shoot. I've learned so much, and I am so grateful to have this resource. Thank you for everything that you do for fellow photographers, sharing your experience and knowledge to help us grow." Christy, thank you. Oh my gosh. When I started the podcast, I think about this because, as I've shared before on the podcast, I went to film school to learn how to make movies. And then when I transitioned into photography, it was while the settings, they all transfer over. It's all the exposure settings. all the same. I still felt like there was this gap of information. There was a lot that I didn't know still. And while I knew parts of how to use the camera, there was still a ton that I didn't. And I thought, if I can, talk to others, if I could figure out, what really goes into making a great photograph and then share those conversations, this is going to be a wonderful resource for others. And, Christy, obviously you have found that to be true. And I'm so happy that you have this resource that I didn't have when I first got into this. It is so much fun. And it is really the stuff that I had to learn the hard way. So enjoy. And again, Christy, thank you so much. Now, remember, before I let you go this week, photography is a service. Photography is not a product. You can deliver an incredible experience for anyone you want to share photos with by signing up for a free CloudSpot account today over at deliverphotos.com. And that is it for this week. Remember, the more that you shoot today, the better of a photographer you will be tomorrow. Talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the Beginner Photography Podcast. If you enjoy the show, consider leaving a review in iTunes. Keep shooting, and we'll see you next week.